I am sober and rarely drink alcohol.
You need to ask permission from everybody in the group to bring your boyfriend.
We're all a bunch of degenerate.
It's got to be the majority of the population, even now.
And everybody is safe for sinners for our sake.
2 security guards framed me for masturbating in the restroom, something I did not do.
Judge, I got the video! Fire this.
Oh my God! Melinda Brown Duncan, baby!
Impact, influence, and awesomeness.
Chicken's down everyday people, churches, Popeyes, and Kentucky Fried Chicken.
He assaulted me with the chicken!
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
If he were habitual homosexuals, then by all means, take a hike.
As long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm going to be okay.
We didn't have tornadoes here until we started putting into traffic circles.
Speed demons are a tyrant that's plaguing the streets of our city.
Because on the counter, you want to know why? That when people go round and round in circles, it causes disturbance in the atmosphere. Round yourself with smart, talented people. You ain't seen nothing, my friend, until you have a flame coming out your butthole, and you need an asbestos diaper to be able to keep that flame from burning a hole in your head.
My wife had my eating their first, and the motherfucker tried to cook it. It was only like 4 grams, but it was really good weed.
Yeah, man, you just unlucky you.
Don't hate our problem, because guess what? It's been going on for humans, man, and you don't even know about it.
Now to wrap it up.
I quit this bitch.
On the big station.
Instagram, TikTok, Threads. We can connect there at dan.stansberry. And the studio reachable at 330-450-7625. You can call or text that line. And also, the microphone talkback button on iHeartRadio, an easy way to reach the studio as well. This morning, we will rock the bank with you at 9 a.m. this morning. We will start your weekend out with an extra bonus, if you will, $1,000. Now, those keywords continue all day here. I just get lucky enough to pass out the first, and we'll do that at 9 a.m. Also at 9 a.m. this morning, we're going to have to talk about AI a little. I have always been a little weary of it, a little scared of it. Again, I reference this article all the time. I read at Business Insider that they claim in about 15 years, AI is going to take the bulk of jobs. So I have some audio. Went a little viral yesterday. This is AI trying to fill the void that we have after losing George Carlin forever ago. And AI now is going, well, since we don't have George Carlin anymore, I'm going to fill the void of George Carlin. And there's an hour-long special by a AI program, I believe it's called Dudesy. And I have some of that audio. We're clearly not going to play the entire hour of it. But that AI program gave us some stand-up material on the subject of mass shootings in this country in the stylings of George Carlin. His daughter has come out and has had a strong opinion about this being done, as I would imagine most people would if their family was absolutely being, used in this manner. I would absolutely have a problem if somebody was like, hey, we can get, Stansberry's, minister dad back. We got the new sermon. Check out the 2024 AI, the Papa Stansberry sermon. I would hate that. Absolutely hate it. And she does not like this, and I don't think you're going to like it much either. We'll get there coming up at 9 o'clock. Absolutely ruining George Carlin, the legendary stand-up comedian. We'll talk about that. We will do that just a little bit in the 9 o'clock hour. We're also going to have to remind people who George Carlin really was. A lot of people like to use him to win an argument here or there. What I liked about George Carlin mostly is that he kind of straddled that line like I feel like I do. It's like, I'm not really in your group. I'm not really in your group. They get this right. They get this right. You got that wrong. They got that wrong. And it's kind of like you're both to blame. That's kind of who he was. He wasn't left. He wasn't right. He attacked both viewpoints. That is gone today, especially in the comedian world. If we're going to go with comedians being the late night guys and things like that, it is all one camp versus the other. And I think that's bad for entertainment, for comedy. So an AI program's trying to fill this gap and we'll figure out what ESPN and SportsCenter and those types of shows are. But thinking about my age, how much I loved ESPN growing up in that, 1997 kind of feels like right in their wheelhouse of like, man, this thing's really getting hot, right? Like, off a couple there or whatever. I'll look that up before we get to this conversation. But at 8 a.m., ESPN's walking back some stuff. Long it's been a problem since 1990. They're telling on themselves here, by the way. So we'll get to that. Also, Canada is looking to protect criminals. This is ridiculous. This is going to infuriate you. It really infuriated me talking so much this. I'm going to try to get this into the show today at 7 o'clock as California is looking to change tackle football for children. And so we'll address that today. I think some people are going to be a little bit upset about that change. Station 2. I have said all year, I think Myles Garrett will win Defensive Player. You will never convince me otherwise of that. Don't give me the solo playing Saturday. Your guy's on the bench this weekend. We got our guy. We're good. That's exactly what Andrew Berry's going to say. We can argue it all you want. I'm right. Steelers fans are wrong. Suck it. Myles Garrett will be Defensive Player of the Year. So we were talking about that just a little bit yesterday. Now, Myles has come out and said they're the best defense, and they need. It will be something you need to do. You're on the road, and I got to admit it, as much as I'm giving credit to this defense and Myles Garrett, they have not all season long been the same defense on the road that they are at home. Now, home field advantage, and we know this about sports, and people get a little comfortable at home and all of that. Fair. But now it's win or go home. And we can no longer do, well, we got another road game next week. We'll see if we can get it tightened up. No, you don't. You got this game this week. And C.J. Stroud, rookie, yes, but he's playing absolutely lights out. So the defense is going to have to be pretty good, and they're looking to prove themselves. We'll tell you what Myles had to say. We'll get to those comments throughout the program today as well.
He was the most hated man in America. And then Kanye came along. Ah, thanks a lot, Kanye. The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. Do have Sonic Temple tickets. Let's get those passed out at 7:45 this morning. That's my final pair for the week. However, I did talk to Promotions yesterday. I was going to say promo, and then I decided to go all the way with Promotions. That's why that word sounded weird. Sorry. But I did talk to Promo yesterday, and they're like, hey, man, we're going to extend Sonic Temple all next week for you as well. So I'll have those tickets if you miss out today. And then Tuesday, I'm going to be announcing a couple of shows. I'm looking forward to one of those. We'll get to it next week. In Browns football not that long ago, right? I mean, Baker Mayfield won a playoff. And now we go back. September 1st is when I moved in. So I've been there since then, obviously, and I have yet to purchase a living room television. I know it sounds kind of crazy, right? I got the living room set up, Northeast Factory Direct, bought all the furniture, one-stop shopping, it was great. And I was like, all right, I'll go tomorrow and get one. All right, I'll go tomorrow and get one. All right, I'll get one. And the truth is, I just don't want to have to go through the hassle of hanging it on the wall. I was like, I get it. And I had one in the bedroom. And so I've been using the couch to just read books and like, all right, then I'll turn on the TV a little bit before I go to bed at night. That's pretty much what I've been doing. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, what do I want to do for the weekend? I don't want to go. I feel like staying home. And I'm definitely going to want to stay home for the Super Bowl. I was like, so I might as well just, bite the bullet and do this. So sure enough, I go up to the Strip yesterday, go into Best Buy, and a couple of the guys in that department, turns out they listen to the program. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And found my television, and they're apparently coming today to drop that off for me. We'll get it up on the wall, and then I'll be set for tomorrow. I'm excited, man. I got the sound bar ready to go. I got everything ready to go. I know what I'm making for food. I am pumped about this. And I was talking to my buddy Josh, who actually works for this company, and he's based out of the Detroit area. And he's obviously got the Lions in there, too. And we started talking about how we're both a little, excited, yes, for these games, but nervous. Kevin Stefanski's got great odds to win, Coach of the Year and all that. And if you lose this game Saturday, I think a lot of the conversations around him and that team could change. Now, all of a sudden, Jim Schwartz, who a lot of people feel like, oh man, are people going to come and try to shop this guy out of here? There's a lot of coaching vacancies right now, a lot of stuff going on. By the way, if you lose Saturday, he'll be one of those guys people come looking for. That would be awful. That would be absolutely awful. So I'm excited, ready to have some new, technology in my house and all of that, ready to watch it, but I am a little concerned, not concerned, but it's just, I told him yesterday, because my buddy said to me, he goes, you guys are going to win easy. I said, I think you're right. But the problem is that I'm actually a fan of this franchise and you're not. This franchise has kicked me in the testicles. They have not done that to you. And so I am just a little, nervous about it. By the way, it's a quarterback-driven league. And C.J. Stroud, rookie, sure, but playing pretty good. Now, much like if you rush them and get to them, they start to worry too much. They start to panic too much. The mechanics start to fall apart. The throws get late or early. And now next thing you know, you're in his head. Got him seeing ghosts, as they call it. Do I believe Myles Garrett has the ability to do that to C.J. Stroud? Well, yes, because he's done it to Pro Bowl veteran quarterbacks. He's absolutely done that. By the way, they tell me that the last time Joe Flacco played and won a playoff game, I think CJ was 11. Isn't that nuts? Like, that's kind of freaking crazy that kid might have been 11 years old when that happened. I'm excited to see. And now I see a lot of Ohio State fans hoping he plays very well. I guess I get it. You know what I mean? Like, he's a former Buck, although I don't. This is weird, right? Because if a guy used to play for your pro team, you don't really root for them if they go somewhere else. Now, some people are with Baker, and that's not about Baker. I don't think it's a lot about Baker. I think maybe a touch. I think it's also, there are just some people who just hate Deshaun Watson because of what he's been accused of. If that's your take on Deshaun, I can understand it, and I won't even argue with you. And I think that's why some of those people are still kind of following Baker around. Maybe a player here, there, wherever, but mostly it's like, nah, I'm rooting for the laundry, as Jerry Seinfeld once said. But it seems like where if a guy went to the college, it's like he's our guy. Now, I wonder, I'm getting a little lost in the soup here, but I got to wonder if the transfer portal thing with college football isn't going to water some of that down for some fans. That'll be an interesting look. But I'm excited for tomorrow. As a matter of fact, I don't normally open my doors to people. I got people coming over for it. I got the whole thing, man. I cannot wait to see how they play on the road. Miles was talking about how the Browns are the best defense in the league. He kind of feels like they need to be the best defense in the playoffs. Well, you're gonna have to be very, very good. Now we hope Flacco continues to play really well. I think the Super Bowl is a little, far-reaching. I think that's a little bit much to ask. I know Miles kind of needs to look at it that way. The players in the locker room have to kind of keep staying at it that way, that's their goal. For me, I think it's a little lofty, although things can happen, man, and things can happen. You get a little hot at the right time. Next thing you know, you got the right opponent, I believe, to start the playoffs out in the Houston Texans. I would rather be at home on the road because, again, this defense has shown it plays a little bit better, not a little bit, that much better at home than on the road. But I think they can kind of pull it together and fix some of those issues and get the win tomorrow in Houston, again, against the former Buckeye, C.J. Stroud at quarterback for the Texans. I have a list of words that they tell me these are perfect right now to come back into our language. Some of these are ridiculous, and some of these you haven't heard in a long time. Some of them you may have never heard. And I'll run you through some of this list. We'll do it next on The Stansbury Show.
Back to The Stansbury Show. Rock 106.9.
330-450-7625 to send a text to the studio. Chris has done that. So Stansbury, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, but imagine a Browns-Lions Super Bowl. He thinks that'd be a ratings winner. I think it would be too. Usually they tell you, those mid-market teams, not so much, but the Browns are usually a big draw, and I think there would be a lot of just NFL fans that would root for either team there. Like, oh, good, they're going to get one of those two teams there. And I think people would be into that. The Dan Campbell story's been pretty good. The Jared Goff kind of resurgence story's been pretty good. Now, that's on the Lions side. You watch Myles Garrett, the best defender of his era. Suck it, Steelers fans. I'm going to just keep trolling your asses every last chance I get. Every last chance I get. Myles gets his ring there, that'd be great. That'd be great. I do think that rating would be pretty good. I'll tell you the rating that I think would break television. is Cowboys-Steelers. As I've been kind of like messing with the Steelers, like both those teams have massive fan bases outside their markets. Massive. And I think that would be a huge television rating. Now, what may fly in the face of that or prevent a huge rating is the Steelers are kind of lost at quarterback. You know what I mean? And quarterbacks drive rating and interest. And I think, you know, the Cowboys would just roll you. And so I don't think the game would be that good. But that would be a huge television rating. Cowboys and Steelers. You know, by the way, there are rumors that if Philadelphia loses this week to Tampa, that they're going to move off their head coach, Nick Sirianni. Canton guy, local guy. And I think that they may. So that job could be coming up. I think now that Bill Belichick is outside of his job, people thought I was crazy when I mentioned this to a few people yesterday. If Mike McCarthy underdelivers in the playoffs this year, look for Jerry Jones to call Bill Belichick. Sounds crazy, I know, but like, because Mike McCarthy's record's been pretty good in this, but I'm telling you, he doesn't have that marquee. You don't feel like, I got Mike McCarthy, I'm good. It sounds crazy, but it's one of those things that kind of happens in professions like these. I think absolutely, I'm telling you right now, I think Jerry might have already called Bill and said, dude, if Fat Boy doesn't get it done, homie, you're on deck, right? Like, this year gig. I think that could be it. I saw a lot of people tying Belichick yesterday to the Falcons, and people laughed that off. I wouldn't. Here's why. Does it look right? No, it doesn't. It kind of feels like GoBots versus Transformers. I won't deny that. But keep in mind who Atlanta's owner is. It's Arthur Blank. Who is what? Older. And so I think he's going to have more respect for what Bill Belichick has done previously and still hold out hope that there's still that much left in his tank, where I think some of these new ownership groups that are, you know, kind of done with younger guys and people coming in from all these other sport and all this other stuff may look at Belichick and go, that's the past, we're looking to the future. Where Atlanta may be like, you know what, I'm Arthur Blank, I don't really meddle a whole lot, Bill may be one of the best guys available right now, let's just go get him. I think now, does Bill want to go to Atlanta? That may be a separate conversation. But I could see Arthur Blank being that owner of like, no, I was around. Some of these new ownership groups, these guys weren't even old enough to watch Bill dominate this league. I had to watch it. I had to lose to it. I had to be constantly told that nobody was ever going to be as good as this guy. I had to live through this. And so I think Arthur Blank could go, I don't want to live through it again. Go get me my gun. I think there's going to be a lot more coaches that are going to lose jobs. I think there's going to be some coordinators that lose jobs over this, weekend and some stuff like that. There's going to be a lot of shuffling around. What makes me happy is most years that I have been on the air with you, what I've had to do this weekend or by this part of the NFL season is, how do we go and try to attract the best candidate out there that we can go get? How do we do it? How do we try to go seduce a guy? Oh my God, 4 other teams need a coach. They're never going to pick the Browns. And it just feels good. You're like, dude, I think things might be pointed in the right direction now. We may have got this thing turned around a little bit now. Now it is a what have you done for me lately league. So if you lose Saturday, some of those conversations may change, although I don't think the Browns are going to move off of Kevin Stefanski. Instead of trying to figure out how we're going to dragoon the best possible candidate to our position, we're now sitting here hoping, fingers crossed, that we can keep not only our head coach, but our coordinators too. That we can keep our position coaches. We feel like we have it headed in the right direction. That feels good, where a lot of these teams, man, are kind of lost at sea. Now, some of the rosters for these teams are pretty good, so if you get the right guy, I think they can get it turned around pretty fast. It all hire the right personnel. You know what a head coach a lot of times kind of is? It's a little bit like a CEO. A little bit like a CEO. And look at these teams with good rosters that are under-delivering. They need a CEO. That's why the CEOs are worth the money. And that's why the head coaches are worth the money. This ain't basketball. Remember when 5 basketball stars tried to tell you they didn't even need a head coach? Absolutely ridiculous, that league. I mean, it's insanity, that league. And so, but this ain't that. You need somebody to get everybody together and on the same page. Tim says, if the Browns beat the Ravens to get the Super Bowl and the Lions beat the Cowboys, I think it'll be the biggest watched Super Bowl ever. Well, that's interesting. I didn't think about the road there, Tim. That's pretty, yes, I think that could be big. That Browns-Ravens game will be massive if that happens. Obviously, Flacco, having played for the Ravens, won a Super Bowl for the Ravens. I think that could be a huge television rating as well. I'm kind of hoping that ends up with what happens. Forget that Browns versus Steelers playoff game would break the area. Yeah, another Browns-Steelers game, but he'd rather play them than the Ravens. For sure, right? Because the Steelers aren't as good. And Lamar, man, I know people don't want to give him his due, but I mean, come on. What more does this guy have to do? I mean, seriously, what more does Lamar Jackson really have to do for him to start to get the credit? Win a Super Bowl? Okay, that's fair. That's fair, but I don't know why. Andrew Luck was widely considered to be the best quarterback in the league while he was playing. Plenty of people held that opinion. He didn't have a bowl. I don't know what more Lamar Jackson has to do on a field. How much more escapability do you got to see? How many more big throws do you got to see? I'll admit when he first came out, he didn't throw the ball great. But you got to give the kid his credit. Put his head down, got a new coordinator, swallowed the system, worked on the game, worked on some of the throwing, and he's a much better quarterback today than he was a few years ago. I don't know what people are waiting on with Lamar Jackson, man. Like, the kid can clearly play the position. Are there maybe quarterbacks in the league that are better? Sure. If you offer me Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, I think I'm still going with Pat. But look at what I just had to do there. I had to go mention the best quarterback in the league. In the league. In order to make that argument. I don't understand why people are so hesitant with Lamar Jackson, man. Now watch, if he, completely S's the bed this weekend, I'm going to look like an idiot for all of that. But I just, the kid is clearly good at the position. He can clearly play the position. I think Browns-Ravens would absolutely be a huge rating. I'll tell you another Super Bowl rating that would be massive. And I mentioned Cowboys-Steelers. Cowboys-Browns would be a huge rating too. Absolutely. That's a massive rating. The Dallas Cowboys, they say, is the third largest brand in the country. Brand. Not sports. Brand. Like, that's how big that is, man. Their fan base is it's like college rabbit. It's like SEC college rabbit, the Cowboys. And so the Cowboys could be terrible. They could lose 15 games a year. Their television rating is always good. No matter what, the TV rating's good. It's just that brand is so powerful. And we know the Browns fans, they're rabid too. Probably not as diehard as Dallas Cowboys. Probably not as spread out throughout the country as much as Dallas. But absolutely a huge fan base that does travel. And I think Cowboys-Browns, I got to tell you, I think that is a huge television rating. And I kind of want it. I do. I kind of want it. I know Cowboys fans are going to tell me I'm nuts. But here's the thing, man. The games haven't started yet. So I still got all my confidence. I think the Browns can beat any last one of you.
He sucks on Instagram, too. Follow him anyway at Dan.Stansberry. The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. this morning, I'll rock the bank with you. I'll get that first $1,000 keyword passed out. Not a bad way to start the weekend, right? Extra $1,000 bucks. I gotta tell you, as a guy who just bought a new TV yesterday, I could use an extra $1,000 bucks. But I work here, and that's good enough, so you get the money. Obviously, football a big part of the conversation for about a year. And then all of a sudden, the NFL started moving big games off of networks, ESPN, that was reporting about it, and started putting those big games other places. Essentially, rewarding people who weren't covering the CTE issue, right? Like, I mean, you can go back and look. I mean, it's like right there, right? And so those matchups started to move around. And miraculously, you stopped hearing about CTE as much as you used to with football players. Yeah, you really weren't hearing about that as much as you used to, right? And it's still out there in the conversation. Sure, there have been multiple studies that have said, the sooner you start tackle football, if you continue to play for years, the higher risk you have. And then I've also seen some studies that come out and said this whole thing's been overblown. It happens, yes, it's been overblown, right? But people are concerned about it. And they're concerned about their children. And so now, like I said, this bill would ban tackle football for children. Now, they say for children under the age of 12. That seems to be the line where people feel like, all right, after 12, we can kind of do this. Now, coaches, of course, don't like this. They warn that keeping kids away from tackle football cuts you off from an important source of physical activity. Okay, not every kid plays football. And plenty of kids find activity without it. Now, do adults, do people, do all of us get as much activity in our lives as we should? Probably not, but I think that there's probably another way to get your kid in that versus just football if you're a little worried about it, right? I remember it was years and years and years ago. Butch Davis was still at North Carolina. And I was watching TV, and he had some scientist on his sideline with him, and they were taking data. And that scientist said, every hit you take in football is like a minor car accident. And I was on the couch with this woman, and I said, wait till moms start to hear that. When moms start to hear that, I think you're going to see a reduction in kids entering youth football programs. And that did happen for a little while. It did. Now, a legislative committee in California voted 5-2 during a public hearing to advance the bill. Kevin McCarty put the motion in motion. But the measure is still a long way from passing, they say. It must clear the state assembly by the end of January to have a chance of becoming law this year. Quote, football and organizational sports in general are clearly proven ways to keep kids out of trouble. That's Assemblyman Mike Gibson. Well, really? I don't know about that. I think a lot of times playing sports and you get yourself in trouble is because you're playing sports, you end up getting out of the trouble because somebody covers it up for you. Look at Peyton Manning back in college. Look at Peyton Manning in the pros when his wife had, steroids mailed to the house. You could take a look at some of the high school programs earlier this year where some players got in trouble. And all of a sudden it's like, nah, not so much. Nah, sweep it up. We got a title to go win, right? And there's some stuff like that. So do organizational sports keep kids out of trouble, or do they teach you how to get away with the trouble that you're getting yourself into? Both can be true. Both can be true. I would want my kid to play sports more than I wouldn't. I don't have children, but I would want my kids involved in things. Absolutely, I would. This bill is not taking away the ability. It's simply saying that we're going to move from tackle football to flag football, and we can still have the same learning experience. Now, if passed, it would not take effect until 2026. And so, of course, then they say proposed amendments would gradually phase in implementation throughout 2029. Flag football has been gaining some popularity. They say especially for girls, and they say this is another way to maybe do some co-ed stuff until people start to get to 11 or 12, and I don't have a problem with that either. I really don't. Was flag football floated as an Olympic sport, or are they actually doing that? I know I saw a lot of the NFL guys talking about how they want to do it, and so I think they are doing that. So if it's going to be an Olympic sport, I don't know why I think it's hilarious for a 10-year-old to be doing it. It's strange, man. Like I was telling somebody the other day, I feel like a hypocrite, if I'm honest. Because I love watching football. I can't get enough. So I'll watch your kids do it. I would let my kid play football. I would be nervous about it. I wouldn't want to let him to do it, but I would. It's one of those things. Every time I was in those stands, I'd be holding my wife's hand like, oh my God. You know what I mean? There's just going to be a little bit of that. It's your kid. Now, most people play and you end up fine. You really do. But then, 3 times a year, it's like, hey, high school junior dies miraculously on the 50-yard line. Nobody knows why. Right? And it's like, well, wait. If that's my kid, I'd be worried about that. I talked to a father yesterday who said, my son played, peewee football and that kind of stuff. And I think it was 7th, 8th grade. Then he started playing a little bit more. And he said, my kid got 2 concussions in the season, and that was it. I was like, you're done. I said, yeah, if my kid got 2 concussions, I'm probably not going to have them doing that either. They say here, according to Time.com, that research has shown tackle football to cause brain damage, and the risk increases the longer people play football. That's Chris Nowinski, the CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation and former Harvard football player. He's also a former WWE professional wrestler as well. It can cause chronic traumatic issues which cause the death of nerve cells in the brain. That does not sound good. That does not sound good at all. He says, I don't have a problem with NFL players who are adults and understand the risk and are compensated, risking CTE. I can't imagine a world in which we have children who do not understand the risk, doing this for fun and taking the same risk with their brain. All right, I could understand why that sounds like it makes a lot of sense, because it does sound like it makes a lot of sense. My question is, what's the line between 11 and 12? That doesn't feel like that big of a jump to me. Like, if you tell me we're not going up until what we're going to do, but you're not playing tackle football till you're 16, like, what I'm saying is there's not enough years of development in between where the cutoff line is. So what are we doing something, or are we just doing something so we can say we did something so people shut up about it and we get on to the next thing? Is that what we're doing? Because that's kind of what it feels like we're doing. Now, I know how this is going to be perceived by a lot of people. Every generation getting softer, and every generation does get softer. Life is easier today than it was in the 30s. Men are definitely softer now than they were back in the day. A 150-pound guy back in the day, wiry, could beat your ass. Now everybody's 240 pounds, soft-bellied, and hasn't got off the goddamn couch in 2 years. Life is softer for sure, and I know I'm going to hear a lot of people talk about that with this issue. So what I have is a list of football players that say, no, my kid ain't never playing. And I'll tell you who those are next on the Stansbury Show.
We would have him drug tested, but why waste the money? The Stansbury Show on Rock 106.9.
7:45 this morning, I'm going to get you into Sonic Temple. That show's in May, Historic Cruise Stadium in Columbus. I'll have tickets all next week for you, too. But by the end of this hour, I'll get you in. We had been talking about a bill in California that, if passes, will ban tackle football for children under the age of 12. I'll have to thank Jeff here, who called in during the break, and unfortunately some of my equipment's not working properly this morning. And Jeff told me the story about how he has 2 kids, and he's keeping them out of football. They're both athletes. They both play other sports. But Jeff had served in the military, and an IED incident has affected some issues with him, or has brought on some issues for him, some scarring, some scar tissue in the brain and the leg, and his short-term memory is affected because of that. And so Jeff told me, he's like, having lived through something like that, man, it just has me thinking twice about my kids. Nothing matters more than children, your own children, right? Like, nothing matters more than that. He's like, so I'll take the snickering, I'll take all of that, from other people. He's like, but at the end of the day, I want my kids safe, and I can understand it.